Were Indian security agencies planning to kill Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannun in New York? Well, American law enforcement agencies seem to think so. The US Justice Department has filed charges against an Indian national for plotting to kill Pannun on American soil. Now, Pannun, remember, is a dual American-Canadian citizen. The US indictment says that a man called Nikhil Gupta was handled by an Indian government official. Essentially, the charge is that an Indian agent orchestrated the plot to kill Pannun. The agent, identified as CC1, has not been named in the charge sheet. But the charge sheet also states that Nikhil in turn recruited a hitman who was supposed to do the job for $1 lakh. But then it actually turned out that the hitman was actually an undercover US officer. Now, there's another twist to this story. 52-year-old Nikhil Gupta is allegedly a drugs and weapon trafficker, and America alleges that he agreed to kill Pannun in exchange for being let off the hook in a criminal case for which he is booked here in India in Gujarat. He was arrested in Czech Republic and is awaiting extradition. Meanwhile, India today said that it is taking the matter seriously and that this is against Indian government policy.
Of course, such inputs very seriously, and a high-level inquiry committee has been constituted to look into all the relevant aspects of the matter, and necessary follow-up action will be taken based on the findings of the inquiry committee. You would have seen this in our statements that we have issued. We cannot share any further information on such security matters. As regards the case against an individual that has been filed in a US court, allegedly linking him to an Indian official, this is a matter of concern. We have said, and let me reiterate, that this is also contrary to government policy. The nexus between organized crime, trafficking, gun running, and extremists at an international level is a serious issue for law enforcement agencies and organizations to consider. And it is precisely for that reason that a high-level inquiry committee has been constituted.
Now, the charges by United States, remember, come after Canada accused India of killing Khalistani terrorist Nijar on their soil. But here are some key questions that have to be asked. Why is the United States letting anti-India voices breed on its soil? Will these charges have an impact on the India-US relationship? And how will India deal with the larger problem of Khalistani terrorism? Joining me on the show today, former Ambassador Pradeep Kapur. He's joining us from Washington, D.C. He's also an international strategic advisor. Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador, also joins us. Good evening, namaskar. And Chirayu Thakkar, foreign policy expert, joins us as well. Let me first come across to you, Ambassador Pradeep Kapur. What do you make of these charges, first of all, of the United States accusing an Indian national of planning to assassinate a Khalistani terrorist right there in America, who also turns out to be an American citizen?
Thank you very much for bringing up this discussion. It's very important. And what I make of this is that if this has been an ongoing issue since June, how has it suddenly erupted onto the screens now after so many months? That's the first question. Second question is that there are lots of elements within the deep state which are inimical to US-India interests. And some of them are constantly trying to damage this relationship. So what the government of India, the spokesman, has done is absolutely correct. The statement is on the ball. But the questions which are to be raised is that he is indicted terrorist in India. Why is the US sheltering a terrorist, a US terrorist? And they have had enough experience of, fomenting terrorism and terrorists, and which has come back to bite the country. Should they be doing it again? what is the right place for Pannun to be in? He has to be kept in a prison in solitary confinement till he is extradited to India for trial. And why do I say that? According to the laws of the land, he has been making statements about assassinating the Prime Minister of India, about assassinating the External Affairs Minister, about assassinating the High Commissioner of India in Canada, the Consulate General of India in Canada, other diplomats, bombing of a plane. Now, these are serious enough charges for even a third world country or a rogue country to take seriously. For the US not to take these statements, which he has gone on video and he's broadcasting these videos himself. So no further evidence is necessary. He's a lawyer, he should know that. And how is the US coming in defense of a US terrorist who's on record having made statements which are very, very serious in nature and which make him culpable? And already there are cases against him in India, and he has been indicted. So back to you. Thank you.
Chirayu Thakkar, here's a man who has been designated as a terrorist by India. He has, as Ambassador Pradeep Kapur said, he has made some extremely objectionable statements. He has threatened India, Indian officials in the US, UK, in Canada, Australia. He's also threatened to blow up an airline. And here is United States actually defending him and blaming India for plotting to assassinate this man. The problem and the question here is, Chirayu Thakkar, why is America letting this man voice his opinions on American soil against India?
Shreya, good evening, and thank you for having me. You have pointed out a right question, and I think I echo Ambassador Kapur's sentiment that Pannu is no ordinary American citizen. When you actually describe him as an American citizen, what you are actually taking away is the fact of the sinister side of his personality, that he has threatened diplomats, which is clearly a violation of the Vienna Convention. He has threatened to blow up an airline, which is again a much more insidious plot, even though his capacities may not be there, but he is openly coming out and giving such statements. What I would say is, let's assume for a minute that there was someone who was remotely affiliated with the Indian government was involved with this. What it says at a more strategic level is somehow India's sensibilities, somehow India's security challenges are not taken seriously by not only the United States, but Canada, Australia, the UK, many of these countries of the Anglosphere who are recipients of Sikh diaspora. And the issue is that if you're not going to accommodate India's very serious concerns, and this is something very insidious, this is not someone who is just making random threats against the Indian Prime Minister or one Indian diplomat. There's a systematic movement which is married to a very violent political philosophy. So if you're not going to accommodate India's strategic concerns, there will be frustration at some point and something is going to happen. Now, we can talk endlessly about the symptom, but here the disease is India's very legit secessionist concern. And if India and the United States and the other countries from the Anglosphere, if they are able to talk as mature democracies and handle the key issue, then I think we would not be at the point where we are.
Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, these such charges have been made against India by Canada as well earlier. But the way we responded to Canada and the way we've responded to the United States has been very different. Considering our relationship with both the countries, we've had a history with the US, we've had a history with Canada. We've also been asking from Canada for evidence, which they haven't provided yet. But with the US charges, we have told them that this is not the Indian government policy and that we are probing the matter. How do you see this response by the Indian government to both the countries, differing from each other? And how do you see the response separately that we have given to the United States?
Well, India's response to the United States shows that we value our bilateral relationship. We have said that a high-level inquiry committee has been constituted, and we will be guided by its results. However, Shreya, let me categorically state that what the US gives as evidence is not necessarily to be taken as gospel truth. The US is known to conjure up evidence. For instance, the US said when George Bush Jr. was president that it had evidence that Iraq was manufacturing weapons of mass destruction, and it invaded Iraq, resulting in more than 1 million casualties. And ultimately, it was found that Iran was not making weapons of mass destruction. Again, in my own career, when I was posted in Pakistan, President Reagan repeatedly certified that the United States had no evidence that Pakistan was making nuclear weapons, whereas they actually had such evidence and were ignoring it because Pakistan was considered a strategic ally in the context of the American war against the Soviets in Afghanistan. So American evidence is very, very often unreliable, and it is manufactured to suit their own political interest. So I will be taking whatever the Americans are saying with not just a pinch of salt, but with a bucket of salt. However, as India has said, we have set up a high-level inquiry committee, and we will be guided by its results. As you said, anti-India terrorists have been given freedom to operate in the United States, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, also in Australia. And in all these countries, we have been witness to a number of attacks against Indian interests, including against Indian diplomatic interests. And the governments concerned have looked the other way. For instance, there was the attack on the Indian consulate in San Francisco. There was the attack on the Indian High Commission in London. What action was taken against the perpetrators of these acts? None at all. There have been inquiry committees, etc., and all that, but not a single person has been punished. So I take all this, what these countries say, with a huge amount of salt, because there are their personal interests. Sometimes they try and pressurize India. For sure, there are US interests involved in the bilateral relationship with India. And if pressure can be brought to bear on India, then maybe the US can extract more mileage. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm very
Ambassador Dayal,
skeptical. Yes.
Ambassador Dayal, then how do you see this, this whole going public with these allegations by an ally with whom India, shares a strong, good relationship, and we've seen that relationship only strengthening by the day. Do allies behave like this?
Well, the United States pursues its policies as it suits itself. And if it puts pressure on India in any situation, surely it has a good reason of doing so. But I, for one, having watched the United States from a very close distance, I'm very skeptical about the authenticity about these allegations. And as our government has rightly said, we are setting up a high-level inquiry committee, and we'll be looking into it. That is the absolutely correct reaction to whatever the United States has said.
Okay. Ambassador Pradeep Kapur, I also want to understand from you, since you're in the United States, I want to understand from you this problem of the Khalistani terrorism spreading. We've seen it in Canada. We've also raised our concerns with Canadian authorities, with the government there in the country, but so far nothing has been done. In the United States, what is the situation like? How are they treated? How fast is it spreading? What are the authorities doing about it? Because clearly with these kind of allegations, it doesn't seem like the authorities, the American government, is really doing something or anything about anti-India voices there?
Well, I wouldn't agree with that entirely because, according to some information which I have from very reliable people in the White House, before the Prime Minister's visit in June, there was again a lot of clamor in the United States, somehow to cancel the visit or not to let it happen in the way that it went through. So there were tens of thousands of letters, email messages, phone calls, and posted mail sent to the White House, saying that this and who was sending these letters? The Islamic Jihadis here, the woke army, the George Soros Foundation people, and some people, very well-known people from the opposition in India, using the same wording as the others, and some Khalistanis also. Now, what did the White House do? The White House decided to ignore all that and discard all that and go ahead with making the visit a very successful visit, in spite of the continuous phenomenal pressure it was under. But there are some rogue elements within the system who want to disrupt the relations, and these sometimes succeed. What India and US have to understand is that if this is an important relationship for the US, even more than it is for India, no doubt it is for India also a very, very important relationship. So, for both countries, if it is going to become the defining partnership of the 21st century, how do we proceed ahead towards the future, for which we have done so much of groundwork? We have had so many meetings, we have had so many clear-cut, robust, declarations, communiques, announcements, action. Now, how do we keep that momentum up? The military to military equation is very good. So many things are working out in the area of science and technology. The ISET, the initiative for critical and emerging technologies. So the plethora of actions which are possible and which are being taken is so vast that we cannot let a small little issue like this distract from the larger discussion framework. So how do we get back on track? How do we deal with this? How do we sort it out in a manner which takes very clear cognizance and gives due consideration to India's concerns, that if this guy is a US terrorist operating on US soil and is inimical to Indian interests and is threatening openly, and there is enough evidence towards that, and he has been indicted in Indian courts, how do we now deal with this issue of in a balanced way which satisfies India's concerns also, so that he's extradited to India and he's tried in a court of law and not allowed to go scot-free, making all these absurd threats all the time in the air? So that would be the proper way for two mature democracies to go ahead and solidify and intensify their relations further in the future, rather than getting distracted and getting onto a track which is ultimately, I don't know what it is going to lead to, whether it is going to lead to anything positive between the two sides, or it is just going to further irritate the relations and disrupt the relations between the two countries. Thank you. Back to you.
Yeah. Chirayu Thakkar, I had asked this question when Canada had made allegations against India, and now that the US has made allegations against India, on the same lines, I'm asking this question again, that are United States and Canada going the Pakistan way? In the sense that you are harboring anti-India voices, those who work against Indian interests right at home, but here you are trying to strengthen a partnership with India while you let these voices breed on your soil.
No, Shreya, I think there is a qualitative difference between the approaches, between the issue, although on the surface of it, both of the instances look very similar. As I said, on the surface of it, they are indeed similar, but there is a difference. President Biden or Secretary Blinken, they did not come on the television and made a televised address or went to the US House of Congress and said that, oh no, India is doing this or India is that. they behaved like mature democracy. I'm pretty sure that some of these conversations would have been going on in the background for very long. The same way Canadians were also approaching us with their own set of concerns. But despite those concerns, Trudeau made a public affair and actually put the horse before the cart. Well, look how United States did it. They have not taken a public position yet, at least not the Biden administration. The court proceedings are moving on, and from the sealed indictment, which was unsealed later on by the DOJ, we are learning some of these charges, and Indian government is now taking it seriously because the indictment is now unsealed. The charges are in public domain. So the fact is that compared to how United States is it's taking this, the Canadian affair looks acutely juvenile. That's one aspect of it. Part of the reason is for Canada, the stakes are domestic and much less. I mean, what do we trade $8-10 billion with them? We don't have like vast strategic interest. We don't buy arms anymore, or maybe some amount of arms. Look at our relationship with the United States, over $100 billion of business, arms, strategic interest, conversions. The ambassador previously mentioned military to military ties. We have 4 foundational interoperability agreements with them. So the stakes are really, really high. And as the previous speaker said, it could go either way, but this is not the first time that this kind of assassination attempt has happened. It happened previously with Taiwan, and it did not make a dent in that relationship. Of course, something would have happened behind the scenes, which we are not privy to. So my understanding is that cooler heads will prevail.
But also,
This
Chirayu
will just
Thakkar,
be
we
public.
don't have the full, we don't have the evidence in the public domain, and those charges have not been proved against Nikhil Gupta, who has been charged in this case by the US. But can the US really take this holier than thou position where it is accusing another country of having an assassination attempt on its soil, when the US does not itself have a very clean record in this matter?
Shreya, you are absolutely right. But if you look at the language, the person is accused, who is an Indian government employee. If you look at the complete indictment, there is not a word about government of India. Whereas if you look at Trudeau's statement in the parliament, he went out and started with the government of India linked agent. That is a clear accusation. What I'm trying to say is that United States is trading very carefully. It's walking a very tight rope here. And it also understands that if it really wants to prove something or create a pressure on the Indian government, it has to first prove something very solidly. The evidence need to be really foolproof, which is not yet happening, and that's the reason partly they are taking it slow. And even if the evidence is solid, they would try to sort out behind the scenes without making a fuss like Trudeau. They are much more mature.
Okay. Let's hope that maturity comes through in this whole case. But last question to you, Ambassador Dayal. What does it mean then for the India-US relationship, and how do the two countries move forward when one of them has accused a national of another country of plotting an assassination on their soil?
Well, the relationship is quite deep-rooted, and it has grown from strength to strength in the last few years. So I don't think that the relationship will get derailed per se. India and the US now have a strategic partnership. We are closely cooperating in the Indian Ocean region, where the United States and India both have an interest in the containment of China. We are having a defense partnership which is centered around defense production. The United States, between the year 2008 and now, has exported a very, very large quantity of defense equipment. In fact, it now ranks as the biggest defense supplier to India. And there is an all-round relationship. There is a huge Indian community in the United States. The people-to-people relationship is very, very strong. The United States is taking all steps possible to strengthen the people-to-people relationship. So I think that the relationship per se between India and the United States is on very sound footing. It will continue to strengthen. But At the same time, an allegation like this, although it is directed against an Indian government official, and unlike what Justin Trudeau had said at the Indian government, nonetheless, this is going to be an irritant. But as we have said, we have set up a high-level committee, and we'll go by the inquiry report. I would think that both India and the United States consider each other a very, very important partner, and therefore they will continue to strengthen the bilateral relationship.
All right, we'll leave it there. Ambassador Prabhu-Dayal Chirayu Thakkar and Ambassador Pradeep Kapur, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective on this deeply concerning allegation that the U.S. Justice Department has made against an Indian national. We'll keep getting our viewers the latest on that. On Beyond the Headline, let's move on and get you other updates now. Passengers on an Air India flight traveling from Gatwick to Amritsar faced massive inconvenience when water started to leak through the overhead bins of the flight. Air India has now released a statement in connection with this incident. The airline has stated that flyers seated in the affected rows were promptly relocated to other vacant seats. It also expressed regret for this unexpected incident. My colleague Arunil joins us with more on this. Arunil, the visuals that we are showing our viewers are concerning that water leaking on an Air India flight. What happened? What is the airline saying? What caused that?
Well, very shocking visuals that we are basically seeing in this long-haul flight from Gatwick in London to Amritsar. Basically, Air India has also given out a statement. There is a massive leakage that can be seen in the cabins above the passengers where they are seated. Air India basically has given out a statement saying, our flight, Air India 169, operating from Gatwick to Amritsar on 24th of November 2023, developed a rare occurrence of condensation adjustment inside the cabin. They also basically said that the water that was dropping on the passengers, they were immediately moved to other seats, and Air India has apologized for the inconvenience that has been caused to the passengers as well. But very shocking visuals wherein an international flight, Air India, water dropping from above above cabins can be from cabin compartments can be seen in these visuals, and now Air India has also confirmed it and apologized to its customers.
Okay. All right, Arunil, thank you very much for joining us with those inputs. So the airline now clearing and confirming and apologizing and regretting that this incident happened. With that, we're wrapping up Beyond the Headline. News and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. Thank you very much for joining us right now. Bye-bye. Good night.